Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. We are so thrilled to have you with us, whether you're watching or listening. Thank you so much. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, the president and founder of this network, and our show today is The Art of Creating Mental Health Wealth with JENETTA Barry and the Epiphany Process. Let's bring her out, and then we'll welcome our guest. Hi, JENETTA.
Hey, hello, Dr. JACALYN. Hello, everybody out there. Welcome to this show today. I think you'll find it quite insightful. I certainly have.
Well, JENETTA, you have the most wonderful group of friends and colleagues that you bring from around the world. And it's interesting because our guest is in New York and you are where?
I'm in the middle of the Great Rift Valley in Kenya, East Africa.
It's incredible. And how's your experience been there?
Oh, it's been amazing. It's been a bit isolated and lonely. In fact, this might be interesting for others. I mean, I've had many years of isolation on my own and got used to it. But I haven't had isolation and aloneness now for 3 or 4 years since I met my now fiance, Andy, and now over these last few weeks I've been on my own and quite isolated, not in a city where it's easy to pop off to the shops and do things to distract yourself. And I found over the last week or two, apart from the fact that I lost my second dad, who really has been very close to my heart, so I've had that grieving process to deal with on my own in an isolated place far away from the big cities. But what I've noticed is that the original feelings I felt after I lost my 16-year-old daughter Jenny to suicide started surfacing again. So, you know, it's a never-ending process. You don't go, right, I've done it now. So I knew that in the future it would start coming up. And of course, I didn't have anybody to buffer it with right there and then. And it was a really interesting feeling going back to those early days where it felt like life was so overwhelming and I was so vulnerable that I might actually die. And then at other times, I wish I was dead. So those feelings have started coming up over the last few weeks on my own in this beautiful place of paradise. So finding how to juggle the appreciation of this amazingly beautiful, beautiful place and these latent, I suppose, emotions coming up from deep inside me it's been an amazing challenge for me. So I always say I've had to walk the walk and talk the talk to help others with my work. So this is another step in that. But night times have been especially difficult, and getting through them on the other side to a place of open-hearted appreciation has been amazing.
JENETTA, as always, thank you so much for your authenticity and your transparency and sharing your story. And I'm imagining you there by yourself and doing this work, because the work is always there for us to do if we decide to step into it, right? And then we learn some new things about ourselves. So it sounds like that's part of the journey you're going through right now.
It truly is. In actual fact, it's learning when to say it's time to do the work and when to throw the work out the window, because that's another balance. I had a client this week who's lost a child to suicide, and she was clearly not at a place to do the work. And it was like, right, we're tossing that one out the window and off, because we're not going to do the work today. So it's finding that balance But for me and people I've worked with, when you know that it's a daily mental, emotional gym at the best of times, then it's easier to step into working it through in the most difficult of times.
Yes, thanks for sharing that. I can't imagine. The only thing I could share in reference to that is my mom and I were here on this island, which is a destination in the summer where people come. And we were here for 18 months during the pandemic. And literally, you could count the number of people who were here in the winter. And it's very isolating. There's nothing open, and you have to go off the island away. So, a lot of things started coming up for me as well, and so I realized that some things I hadn't dealt with, and that was the time for me to really dig into it. And I'm glad that I had that time to do that work. So, but let's talk about World Jenny's Day. Let's talk about our guest, and let's get her out here. So I'll spotlight you, JENETTA.
All right, thank you. All right, so first of all, sharing World Jenny's Day, that is something that is very, very close to my heart. World Jenny's Day was born out of the Epiphany process. In fact, it's the Epiphany processes, one of the Epiphany processes direct charities. And it was born after I lost my 16-year-old daughter, Jenny, to suicide after she and I had an argument. And in the process of researching and studying to get through that overwhelming loss, during that journey, we realized that Jen had actually died on World Mental Health Day on the 10th of October. So we now have World Jenny's Day, and we use that day very skillfully and heartwarmingly in a way with using theatre and the arts to soften and normalize conversations around depression, suicide, and their solutions, so that people can understand that what's coming out their mouths is very normal and very human, and the stigma just peels away when people step into their creativity, either when they're talking about whatever it is that's challenging them, or actually doing a creative piece of work. And so this will be the third World Jenny's Day, using theatre and the arts very, very successfully. And we're very proud to announce that this year's World Jenny's Day is being platformed here on USA Global TV and Radio, with some very influential people stepping forward, presenting and sharing with us in ways of creative inspiration, rather than defining problems and trying to find solutions, which can get very cerebral and heavy. So it's going to be an uplifting day, that will take you to new possibilities and soften conversations. And I'm so looking forward to this year's.
I am too. I need
So
to start getting my sleep right now.
yes, well, that's very true, because Dr. JACALYN and I have set up the day. It's the 10th of the 10th, so we're starting at 10 a.m. on the 10th of the 10th in British Standard Time, and we're finishing at 10 p.m. on the 10th of the 10th on EDT on the East Coast. So that's 17 hours of presenting that or facilitating. We won't be presenting all that time, but facilitating for 17 hours on the 10th of October. What an amazing day that's going to be. And we're going to have people stepping forward and performing from all around the world. And we're going to have people sharing their videos of what they are celebrating that World Jenny's Day through whatever creative task or hobby that they're doing. And so it's going to be something that you can't miss, but it will be 17 hours for those who want to stick that time with us and share an amazing space.
Thanks, JENETTA. And I'd love for you to introduce Lorraine.
Yeah, absolutely. So Lorraine Garnett and I now go back about 7-8 years. When I first arrived in Manhattan, we were both working with the company together then, and we stepped into a friendship that I cherish and will always cherish till the day I die and beyond. For a good amount of the time that I was in New York, I lived with Lorraine in her Manhattan apartment, and we forged not only that friendship, but because of my challenge of what I'd been through and Lorraine's challenge, we were able to come up with some very meaningful copy and insight and stories. I know Lorraine initially had great trouble in being able to talk online or in front of a camera, and so I was able to help her with that and her story, which is an amazing story. And in fact, there's two parts to that story that is amazing. And she, in turn, I have a block in writing. Just it doesn't flow that well. If I speak it, it's better. And even when I present, I'm better ad-libbing than reading. And Lorraine was able to help so much with some insightful copy. When Lorraine takes something in, she just hunkers down and does her research and comes up with these key words and key phrases, and they're genius. And I just so love working with this lady. She's also very much into website design, and she helped with our other charity arm of the Epiphany Process, which is Insight, the theatrical production on depression, suicide, and solutions. And that website's completely designed by Lorraine, and it takes pride of place, in my opinion, in our charities. So I'm not going to say too much about Lorraine's backstory. I'll give a basic overview. Lorraine realized at some time in her life that her brain wasn't wired like other people, and she'll explain that to you just now. And she couldn't understand what was wrong, or that perhaps even anything was wrong. She just wasn't engaged and present and identifying with people and speaking with them. And at the time that I met her, she had overcome so much of that through practical application and determination and researching and finding really meaningful ways to physically overcome and rewire her brain. This lady literally rewired her brain, the synapses and the motor neurons, everything going in new directions. And she took on a plan of action and hasn't looked back. So I would like to introduce you, ladies and gentlemen, to Lorraine Garnett. Welcome, Lorraine.
Hello, JENETTA and Dr. JACALYN.
Hi, Lorraine.
Well,
Welcome.
thank you, JENETTA. That was an amazing intro. I'm honored.
I am super excited to hear your story. And also, I love the fact, JENETTA, that you shared that you and Lorraine live together. So you two really do know each other. You really
Oh, yes.
It's wonderful.
And Lorraine's apartment is in 55th Street, so it's a little apartment. It's not a big one, and we really got on amazingly well. I think we were together for about 6 or 7 months.
Yes.
It was amazing.
Thank
In fact,
goodness.
I sorely missed you when I left. Sorely
Me
missed you.
too. Me too.
Have you seen each other since then? I mean, in person?
No.
Wow. It was fate that brought you together, and you had
It
that
was
time.
definitely fate.
That's wonderful. So, Lorraine, where would you like to begin your story? I'm anxious to hear it directly from you.
Well, when I was an infant, at least my mother tells me, and I actually have some memories of it, was exposed to a massive dose of radiation. I have a vivid memory of throwing up and like nonstop. And my mother tells me when I was 6 months old, I did throw up nonstop. And I remember it. And afterwards, it when I started maturing, my mother started noticing I did not. There are certain developmental landmarks that children go through, and I didn't quite go through them. I At first it was subtle. I couldn't tie my shoelaces when other kids learn, but okay, no big deal. But then I could I couldn't read. And I was very embarrassed that I couldn't read, so I'd pretend that I could. I could sound out an individual word, but if you showed me a printed page, it just became a word salad. Um, as I got older, it got worse and worse, got to a point where I also could not sit still very long. If I sat in one position, I would pass out. It's only in recent years that a neurologist figured out that I had trouble keeping my head straight, so it would create a lot of tension in the back of my neck, and I started cutting off my cerebral spinal fluid. So sitting still for any length of time, I would black out. Now, in order to go through school or do any kind of quote unquote intellectual work, one needs in our culture to sit still. And that is something I could not do and stay conscious at the same time. Um, Other things started to happen. I had difficulty speaking. There were times when, in my teens, I remember desperately wanting to say something, but the muscles of my cheeks and tongue would just wouldn't work. It just the muscles of speech just wouldn't work, and I didn't know why. And then I can remember getting into very awkward physical positions. I'm very flexible, so I could get into what would be considered some extreme yoga positions, but I would do it improperly and then get stuck in the position for hours on end. I'd lose track of time, and wouldn't know what happened. And then I guess I was in my early teens when there was research being done on so-called develop learning disabilities, um, developmental challenges. It was all a new field then. A lot of the terms that are used in diagnoses didn't exist then. But I did come to the attention of some of the researchers, and all they could tell me was that there were some wires crossed, which is, of course, a metaphor. Even to say I rewired my brain is a metaphor. Um, but I did have the information that the way there are certain movement patterns that begin actually in utero and then in early childhood, like the way we learn to creep and crawl and roll over. By coordinating our bodies for movement, we also set up the connections in our brains that are later used for thinking, learning, organizing our information, organizing time and space. And I didn't have those connections. I think of it now as uh, the basic OS, the operating system. Uh, as I was learning, and I to, as we call it, rewire my brain, and I did it through physical movement. Uh, when I was a child, my parents took me to psychologists and psychiatrists, and they tried to talk to me about emotions, and I didn't even understand what an emotion was. Uh, Even today, I relate to the idea of an emotion as I have a feeling in my body. I have certain, I might have certain pictures in my mind, and okay, there's a label that goes with it. I so I still experience what you would call an emotion as a sensation in my body, some images in my mind, and then the label. I have to think about what label would most people put on this combination of thoughts and feelings, because that doesn't is not part of my initial vocabulary. But I started to say that while I was, um, because I did know there was a physical component, and I did have a very serious coordination problem. Didn't know my left from my right. That was just the beginning of it. I would get lost around the corner from my own house. I could sit next to somebody in class for an entire semester and not recognize them. I would walk down the halls in school and step on people's feet or bump into them and not even realize that I'd done it. I was not getting the expected sensory feedback from the world. So that created a lot of social problems, but again, the social problems, the emotional problems were all secondary. The first problem was that getting my body and my senses to connect to the world around me, and I overcame that through exercise. First, there are systems of exercise that were being developed specifically for the kinds of problems I had. And then I realized that why just limit myself to the exercises specifically meant for people with so-called learning disabilities? Why not do yoga and ballet and martial arts? So I started doing yoga and ballet and martial arts, which at first was very difficult for me because as I said, didn't know my left from my right. I had difficulty shifting weight. Every time I shifted weight from left foot to right foot, I would have to regain my balance. And to this day, I'm still working on it. I have some balance problems. And what else was I saying? Oh, as I worked on exercise, I also started learning computers way back before everyone was on the internet. I discovered that I felt more alive and I could actually absorb knowledge when it came through a computer screen as opposed to from a book. I think it's because at a computer, I'm sitting symmetrically, I'm using both hands, and it's forcing me to use both sides of my brain. So if I read something on a computer screen, I could absorb the information in a way that I couldn't if I heard it or read it from paper. So I started learning, became computer literate quite early on, and now I'm about, I'm in a generation where a lot of people are kind of techno ditzes, and I'm as familiar with the keyboard and technology as a lot of kids. And I do design websites, and I can write HTML and CSS. I also learned a lot from the arts. I'd say my whole emotional education is from the arts because I didn't go through a lot of the experiences that people go through of friendships and marriage and divorce, and my emotional education came vicariously through other people's experiences and through studying. I studied screenwriting, and which is dramatic structure, which is when I met JENETTA and learned about the epiphany process, I realized, oh my God, the same principles that she uses in dealing with people's emotions are the same principles that I learned while studying with some screenwriting gurus.
You know, Lorraine, and I want to share this with you because it always used to blow my mind, or share with our listeners and viewers. One thing that you haven't mentioned is that you're an Emmy nominated script writer, and you did
Yes.
that when you couldn't and you couldn't read or write when you did it. It blows my mind. It's an amazing story. And for me, what so impresses me with you is that you found pathways to make things happen. So for our viewers and listeners, Lorraine would say, okay, right, now I'm going to write this particular part of your story. So now I want you to tell me the story. So here I am, jabba, 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 story. And Lorraine's just looking at me and I'm going, how is she going to write this if she's taking no notes? This was the very first time. We're in her apartment and I'm going, how is this possible? Meanwhile, what she's done is she's put the recording switch on and she's just listening to the sound of my voice, not to one word I'm saying, not one word. She's listening to the sound of my voice. And we came to the end of that, and she goes, let's say that time she goes, that's not a good story. It doesn't have a nice song to it. So tell me another story. So and she'd say, that has a beautiful sound and song to it. That's the story. So just the sound of my voice telling the story would tell Lorraine that it was the story to use. And I think that's brilliant. Then when we were both working together, I'd be at my laptop and she at hers. And now she's writing by way of example, my story. And I'd stop and I'd listen to her because Lorraine sings when she types. She hums and sings. And I'd stop and I'd listen to this singing and humming and go, what's that about, the first time it happened? And then I realized that she was tuning into her wordsmithing through sound. And often, do you want to take over? Or
well, there's a rhythm. There's a rhythm to speech, and I hear the rhythm before I hear the words. when I'm writing, it always starts with the rhythm. When uh, I remember as a kid, people would talk to me, and I'd miss most of the words, but I would hear the rhythm, and I would feel the rhythm.
Yeah, absolutely. And what really blew me away is when Lorraine decided, as she was typing, she'd go say, no, that's the wrong word. So the song would come out sharp or flat, and then she knew it was the wrong word. I mean, it is nothing short of genius. And if I'd had the time, because we were both flat out busy, I'd have just sat there just watching her work, because it's an amazingly different way.
Lorraine, do you still have the same process today?
Yes, yes,
It's fascinating.
absolutely. In fact, I have a few clients now. I work as a writing coach, among other things, and I can look at their Google Docs, and in my mind, I'm hearing the rhythm, and I can just speed read something and get the rhythm. And all those years when I couldn't read, I would still look at printed pages, and this is before computer screens, and I would see a word salad, but every once in a while a phrase would stand out, and I now know that the phrases that just grabbed me and stood out of my mind are uh, almost invariably they're famous sayings, because if some if if you think of all the quotable lines, they all have certain rhythms to them, and they're and if they didn't have those rhythms, they wouldn't work.
Thank you, Lorraine. We also have a comment from our friend Adam. Hello, Adam. He's in the UK. We give off so much energy through the sounds we use, and it's powerful.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You know, Lorraine, we're coming to the home run end of this show, but Dr. JACALYN, I would like to suggest we have Lorraine return at a future date, because the story that she and I wrote together was something that she wasn't able to write about herself. Everybody else was fine, but not herself. And to define what one of her defining moments was. And Lorraine managed through the process. We did a lot of processing. We managed to define what one of her big defining moments was, and it's actually so fascinating, so amusing, and so insightful that it's one that I really recommend everybody tunes into at the next time we have Lorraine with us, because I tell it often when I'm training people and when I'm speaking, because it's so divinely different, rather like her backstory right now. I can't wait to share it in the future. Will you do that for us, Lorraine?
Oh, I'd love to.
I'd love to have Lorraine come back and also talk about your documentary on bargain hunting, and also that famous line that everyone knows from Syms, and what you're doing today. So there's a lot. We might have 2 more shows with you, Lorraine, if you're open to it.
Absolutely. Okay.
Fantastic. So, Lorraine, as we do close out, what would you like our audience to know, to take away from your story when people have physical challenges, emotional challenges? You have overcome these, you work through them, and you are a huge success. Tell us what we need to know if we're going through these things.
You need to do it. That's all. And if one thing doesn't work, try another. But think outside the box. Just do it.
Now, Lorraine, what if we're getting feedback from professionals, for example, telling us, oh, this is something you're going to have to just deal with. You have to do workarounds. What about that drive to just keep looking for answers and finding solutions?
I always had it, even as a young child, when I couldn't do the things that other children could do. Deep down inside, I believed that I had a fantastic soul and that someday it would be able to speak. I always believed it.
There you have it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really hope I get to meet you in person. We're not that far apart.
No.
Come to Manhattan. All right, I will. Okay, thank you. There you go. I just had a whole conversation with myself. Fabulous.
I'm glad you agreed with yourself, because that would have been tricky if you hadn't.
Definitely. So, Lorraine, if people would like to reach out to you and contact you, maybe just share with you what they're going through and just they need somebody who's a friend, how can they reach out?
Well, I did post one of my various email addresses, but now after this program, I am inspired to. I own several domains, including LorraineGarnett.com, and I didn't post it today because it's not functioning, but I'll put up a website for myself.
That's fantastic. And are you available for people to hire you to do their websites?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. Okay, and we're sharing your email addresses, iwoman@spectrum.net.
Yes, for now.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here. JENETTA, any last comments you'd like to give to Lorraine?
Well, Lorraine, as always, each time I see you present, I see you take a gigantic leap forward. When I think of the person that could hardly string two words together when we were trying to do recordings together 7 years ago, I'm immensely proud of you. And I just can't wait to see you going from strength to strength. Not that you haven't before now, but with your ability to talk the way you're now talking, and I know today will have inspired a lot of people. I can't wait to see you getting to really where your genius is at its peak. And I love and adore you, and thank you for being here today.
And thank you, JENETTA, for being you.
Lorraine, it was such a pleasure and honor to meet you. And thank you for inspiring me and our audience. And we look forward to having you come back soon.
Great. Me too. Thank you.
All right. Thanks again. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye. What a wonderful woman. Wonderful person.
Oh, yeah. Just salt of the earth. And it's because she's so uniquely different that authenticity is like an open book with Lorraine. You know exactly where you are with her. I love that.
I bet you had a lot of fun together.
We did. She talked about ballet. We danced together. We went to ballet 2-3 times a week in Manhattan. Actually just off Broadway, with our ballet teacher, Irene, who's another person I'd love to get on this show. I mean, Lorraine, do you think we could get her? It would be amazing. But because she's such a character, and she's choreographed the Rockettes, and often when we were dancing, she would have somebody from the American Ballet Company join us, and so that was amazing. And then Lorraine and I did quite a lot of theater together. She introduced me to a lot of Broadway writers. It was just lovely, just up my alley, just the sort of thing I love doing.
Well, I would love for the two of you to share any pictures or videos you might have from back then. That would be wonderful.
I don't know if we did take any. I'll have a look. Maybe, Lorraine, you've got some, but we'll certainly come up with something. Oh, yes, we used to go to the Ashford and Simpson Sugar Bar together, where Irene, our ballet teacher, sang jazz with her band. There's some photos there I think we'll be able to share, so we'll do that.
Fabulous. Thank you. Jeanette, I'm going to spotlight you for you to share with the audience how they can work with you, how they can contact you, how they can get to know you.
Thank you, Dr. JACALYN. In terms of the epiphany process, you can get hold of me at theepiphanyprocess.com. If you're feeling overwhelmed, vulnerable, if you're feeling it's difficult to express yourself clearly and with focus, that you're overthinking or you're over emotionalizing things, and I mean, hands up, who of us haven't felt like that at some time or another, at least once, but I'm sure more than once in your life, then please do speak to me, because this process is awesome in being able to get very clear and certain and specific. And if I may, Dr. JACALYN, later today, I'll be presenting a little bit more on the epiphany process, well, a lot more in depth, as I now host my own show on USA Global TV with Talking Heads. And so do join us later. I think it's in about 3 hours from now. And in terms of World Jenny's Day, if you would like to get involved, we're always looking for volunteers to help and back and support and be part of what we're creating. We've got a big fundraiser coming up here in Kenya, a safari cycle ride through a game park. Love your help there and help on the day. Then you can contact me at JENETTA at theepiphanyprocess.com. And if you want to know more about Jenny's Day, it's worldjennysday.com. So WORLDJENNYS day.com. And I'm very available on both those websites. So do reach out to me. And I look forward to hearing from you and interacting with you.
Thanks, Jeanetta. And what will you be doing in the very late hours of the evening tonight?
Yes, it doesn't end there. After having presented on Talking Heads, I'm back at my 11 p.m., finishing at midnight, presenting or discussing on a discussion panel where we meet weekly, called A Woman's Prerogative. And these are very vital, important conversations that we discuss. We all share our points of view and our experiences from a place of understanding and empathy and becoming more insightful and growing from the experience. And I know any of you who join us tonight will grow as well.
Thanks, Jeanetta. You need to rest up too.
And I've been doing, I have to do, you see my halo here is going because I've been pre-recording, I've been doing podcasting today, and I'm going to do a little bit more later, and then I'll rest up after Talking Heads, and that's my day done.
Well, I am looking forward to seeing you for Talking Heads and also for Woman's Prerogative. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Just love being with you. I enjoy your energy in a very similar way as the energy I've enjoyed spending with Lorraine. It's got a similar easiness about it. So I always look forward to my Wednesdays.
Well, thank you. I feel the same way about you. It's a beautiful relationship we have.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, my friend. I'll see you later on today.
Bye. Lots of love.
Bye for now. Lots of love. Bye. Hello, everyone. So whether you're watching on the live or listening on the live or on the replay, thank you again for being here. I just want to share with you the rest of our shows for today. I'll get my trusty clipboard out. Okay, so we'll be coming back with the United Kingdom news and culture, followed by fashion, travel, and fitness. And then JENETTA will have her talking head show, followed by the business talk show. And then Wild at Heart, our men's show, which is Bonfire Talks, real, authentic, uncut. And then we go to a woman's prerogative. JENETTA will be there also. And then we finish up with Talking Heads and Mariska Duprier and her show. So thank you again. Please go over to our YouTube channel, which is USA Global TV, and subscribe. As I've mentioned many times, the data from there, the analytics, the people watching on our YouTube channel are 100% men between the ages of 45 and 54. So where are the ladies? Where are the people who don't identify as either? Where are you? Please subscribe. We want to have you with us. All right. Thank you again. I look forward to being back here very shortly and bringing you another show. Take care. Bye for now.